The town of Belwick was known for its silence. Tucked between misty hills and thick forests, it was the kind of place people either never left or never found. It had one main street, a crumbling library, and a train station that hadn't seen a passenger in 10 years. But in the summer of 1994, everything changed when Adeline Hart vanished. Adeline was 17. She was the kind of girl who wrote poems in the margins of her textbooks and walked home barefoot through the wood. People said she was strange. Not cruelly, just quietly, as if she didn't quite belong to the world in the way others did. The night she disappeared, there had been a storm. Trees bent at the neck, power lines snapped, and the town's old radio tower had finally given up. When the storm cleared, Adeline was gone. No sign of struggle. No note. No witnesses. Just her bicycle, found by the old bridge with its wheels still spinning. 21 years later, in 2015, a man named Jonah Kessler returned to Belwick. He had left the town when he was a boy, shortly after Adeline's disappearance, which wasn't a coincidence. Jonah and Adeline had been close, in the complicated way teenagers often are, dancing around feelings they don't yet understand. Jonah had become a journalist in Chicago, carving a life out of deadlines and cold winters. But something had pulled him back, a letter. It had arrived with no return address, the ink faded and the paper yellowed at the edges. All it said was, "She was never lost. Look where the bridge ends." It was signed with a symbol, a circle with 3 lines radiating outward, something he hadn't seen since the last day he saw Adeline. Jonah's return wasn't welcome. The town didn't trust people who left, especially not ones who came back asking questions. Sheriff Moore, now in his 70s, told him flat out, "Some things are better left alone." But Jonah was relentless. He revisited the bridge where Adeline's bike had been found. Nothing had changed. The planks were still rotting, the water below still black as ink. But as he traced the edges of the bridge, he found something odd, a small carving under the railing. That same symbol from the letter. He followed the trail into the woods, past the Hart family's abandoned house, and found the remnants of something strange, a circle of stones, each one etched with runes. He took photos, sent them to a professor he knew in Chicago who specialized in folklore. The response came quickly. "This isn't just folklore. This is old magic, Celtic, protective but also binding. Whatever this circle was meant to hold, it's ancient." Jonah wasn't sure he believed in magic. But the deeper he dug, the more the lines between reality and legend blurred. One night, Jonah had a dream. He was standing on the bridge, but the sky was violet and swirling, and Adeline was there. She looked the same, 17, barefoot, eyes like storms. She said, "You're close. But you have to believe in what's real to see what's hidden." He woke up with a start. On instinct, he returned to the stone circle at dawn. This time, he stepped inside. The world flickered. For a second, maybe less, the woods around him shifted. The trees twisted, the air thickened, and the light changed. He saw a glimpse of a structure, stone walls, candlelight, a figure standing at the edge. And then it was gone. He stumbled backward, gasping. Adeline was trapped, somewhere between worlds, and she wasn't alone. Jonah began investigating old town record. He found mentions of a secretive group that had existed in Belwick in the early 1900s, the Belwick Society. Scholars, occultists, and mystics who believed the town sat on a soft spot between worlds. He found an old photograph in the library archives. A group of 12, all in dark robes. One face stood out, a woman with Adeline's eyes. Her name, Evelyn Hart. Adeline's grandmother. Digging deeper, Jonah uncovered their goal, to open a portal. But something went wrong. Evelyn Hart vanished mysteriously in 1931, just like her granddaughter would decades later. With help from the folklore professor and a few local teenagers curious enough to help, and brave enough to believe, Jonah reconstructed the ceremony. It wasn't just magic, it was a map, a set of symbolic instructions to thin the veil between worlds. On the summer solstice, under a crescent moon, they performed the rite. The air turned silver. The trees bowed inward. A doorway opened. Jonah stepped through. He found himself in a mirror version of Belwick. The sky was violet. The streets were empty. Time didn't flow the same here. And there, in the center of the stone circle, was Adeline. Still 17. Still barefoot. Still waiting. She recognized him instantly. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. He pulled her into a hug. She felt real. Alive. But they weren't alone. Something had been guarding her. A creature of smoke and memory. Something born of the failed rituals and fear of those who came before. Jonah had to choose. Stay and fight it, or find a way to bring Adeline back through before the door closed forever. He ran. Grabbing her hand, he sprinted through the forest, retracing his steps. The world trembled around them. The creature howled. The doorway flickered. They leapt through, and the world snapped back. Adeline was back. She aged slowly at first, her body catching up to the world she'd left behind. The town didn't quite know what to make of it or of her. Jonah didn't write the story. He kept it between them. Some truths, he realized, aren't meant for the front page. Adeline eventually left Belwick, this time by choice. She traveled, studied mythology, and started a foundation for missing persons. Jonah stayed behind, fixing up the Hart House, turning it into a library and community center. The bridge still stands. And sometimes, if you walk by at night, you can hear footsteps on the wood, even when no one's there. It had been nearly a year since Adeline returned. Belwick had changed in small, silent ways. The air felt lighter. The birds sang again. People smiled more, even if they didn't know why. But some things hadn't changed at all. Like the old church on Hollow Road. It was abandoned, leaning slightly to one side, with its stained glass windows long shattered. But most curious of all was its bell, an iron thing older than the town itself. According to legend, it had never once been heard. Until the night it rang. 3 chimes. Slow. Hollow. Echoing through the entire town. Jonah heard it in his sleep, and when he woke, the house was ice cold. He wasn't the only one. Half the town had heard it. The other half swore it was just thunder. Adeline, now studying at a university in Prague, called him the next morning. Her voice was tight. "I felt it," she said. "Something shifted. Something followed us out." Jonah didn't speak for a long time. Because he'd found something on his front step that morning. Wrapped in linen. Covered in ash. It was the same symbol as before. Only this time, the circle was broken. 10 years later, Belwick was almost unrecognizable. The streets were paved. The old library had been restored. Children played where silence once reigned. Tourists even stopped by in the summer, drawn by stories of an unsolved disappearance and a girl who came back from nowhere. Most of them never saw Jonah Kessler anymore. He kept to himself, living quietly in the woods just beyond the bridge. He ran a small bookshop out of the back of his home, mostly old volumes of folklore and forgotten histories. No internet. No phone. Only letters. And every month, without fail, a letter came from Adeline. She had become a researcher of lost places, islands that vanished, civilizations swallowed by mist, cities that only appeared once every 100 years. Her name was becoming known in circles that didn't meet above ground. Her letters were beautiful, sometimes strange, and lately, worried. One of the last ones read, "I'm starting to see them again. In reflections. In doorways I haven't opened. I think the world we stepped out of wasn't the only one. And I think the Belwick Society didn't just bind something, they invited it." Jonah kept the letter sealed in a glass case, along with the broken circle symbol carved into stone. He never told anyone what he saw that morning by the bridge, after the 3rd chime of the church bell. A line had been drawn in the dust at his doorstep. Fresh. Sharp. On one side was his footprint. On the other, something with claws.